Have you ever had that moment, maybe you're waiting to pick your kid up from school, and you see that parent, you know the one, the one you just like, oh, I cannot handle small talk with them right now.
Yeah.
And suddenly you just feel it, like your heart's racing, your palms are all sweaty, and just like this wave of anxiety just washes over you.
Oh, totally, totally.
I feel like we've all been there, right?
Definitely.
But what if we've been thinking about anxiety all wrong this whole time?
Interesting.
What if, it's not about trying to, shush those thoughts in our heads, but more about actually listening to what our body is trying to tell us?
It's fascinating, isn't it, how often we try to wrestle with anxiety, in our minds, but really it's all starting in the body.
Yeah.
And often our bodies are reacting way before we even have time to process what's actually happening.
So that's what we're diving deep into today, right?
Yeah.
What is the truth about anxiety and how can we actually heal it? And I got to say, some of the things I've learned in prepping for this deep dive have really surprised me.
Yeah, I bet.
For instance, the idea that all anxiety might actually be stemming from separation anxiety, even in adulthood.
It's a powerful concept, because as humans, we are just wired for connection, right from the very beginning.
Right.
And those early bonds, with caregivers are so crucial for our sense of safety and security.
Yeah.
But when those needs aren't met consistently for whatever reason, maybe it's, neglect or trauma, or even just, this subtle feeling of not quite belonging.
Yeah.
It can create this really deep-seated anxiety that just sort of lingers.
Wow. So you're saying even something like feeling like you didn't quite fit in with your family could have these long-term effects.
Absolutely. Because that feeling, of not belonging, of feeling different or unseen, it can trigger this alarm system in our body.
Alarm system. So how does this alarm system actually work?
Okay, so imagine your brain has this fear center. It's called the amygdala.
Okay.
And it's constantly scanning for threats, potential threats. And when it detects one, whether it's real or just, perceived,
right,
it triggers all these physical changes. So your heart rate goes up, your breathing gets faster, muscles tense up, and this all happens before you even have time to consciously process what's going on.
Wow. So it's our body is hitting the panic button before our mind even knows what's happening.
Exactly. It's a primal survival mechanism, totally.
Yeah.
But the problem is this alarm system, it can get kind of stuck in the on position even when there's no real danger.
Right.
And that's what often leads to, chronic anxiety.
And this is where it gets really interesting to me. Because we often react to anxiety in ways that actually amplify the alarm. We start overthinking, or we avoid certain situations, or we try to just numb ourselves with distractions.
Yeah. Yes. And it seems so counterintuitive, right? Trying to fight or suppress those anxious feelings, but it really often backfires.
Right.
What we need to do is learn to turn towards those sensations, to acknowledge them, listen to what our body is trying to tell us.
Okay, but it feels so wrong.
I know.
We should be running away from it, not towards it.
It goes against all our instincts, right? To avoid discomfort. But what if that discomfort is actually a signal?
Okay.
A message from a wounded part of ourselves, maybe our inner child that needs our attention.
Oh, wow. So you're saying this anxiety might actually be a plea for love and attention from ourselves.
Precisely. And the more we try to ignore it or silence it, the louder it gets.
Wow. Okay, that's making a lot of sense. But how do we actually do that? How do we turn towards that alarm and listen to what it's saying?
Well, first we need to locate it in the body. Where do you feel those sensations? Is it tightness in your chest? A knot in your stomach?
Yeah.
Once you've identified where the alarm is, then you want to try to find a safe place in your body. A neutral spot that just feels calm and grounded. It might be the feeling of your feet on the floor, the sensation of your breath, or even just, a mental image of a peaceful place.
Okay, so we're finding the alarm and then we're finding the safe space.
Exactly.
And then what?
And then you gently shift your focus back and forth between those 2 points, breathing deeply as you do this.
Okay.
It's like teaching your nervous system that it's okay to feel these sensations. You're not running away from them. You're safe.
And what happens when we do that?
Over time, that alarm will start to quiet down.
Okay.
And not because the anxiety is gone, but because you've learned to be present with it, to accept it.
Yeah.
And to offer yourself the compassion that it's been craving.
This is incredible.
Yeah.
Because we're not just talking about coping with anxiety. It's we're healing it.
Yes.
From the inside out.
From the inside out.
And that healing begins with like reconnecting with our bodies and offering ourselves that kindness and understanding.
Exactly. Anxiety isn't the enemy.
Right.
It's like a messenger trying to guide us back to a sense of wholeness.
And this reminds me of, the observation that a lot of people who struggle with chronic anxiety also struggle with addiction.
Yeah.
It's like these addictive behaviors become a way to just like silence that alarm to avoid facing that pain underneath.
It's like self-medication, in a way, to try to cope with those really overwhelming emotions.
But then it's almost like tragic, right? Because it's like these behaviors, they offer temporary relief.
They do.
But ultimately, they trap us in this cycle.
Right, of anxiety and avoidance.
So we can't just ignore the role of mindset and thinking.
Right.
Right. How does that fit into all of this like body first approach?
Yeah, mindset is so important, absolutely. But it works best when it's combined with this like body first approach.
Yeah.
When we regulate the body, it often leads to a calmer mind, because a calm nervous system sets the stage for, clearer thinking and more effective coping strategies.
Right. So it's not about ignoring our thoughts, but it's about approaching them from this place of like groundedness.
Yes.
And calm.
And safety.
Speaking of feeling grounded, I have to ask about exercise. I find that moving my body is like a huge stress reliever for me.
Absolutely.
What's the science behind that?
Exercise is so powerful for managing anxiety because it helps us reconnect with our bodies, shift our focus away from, those anxious thoughts, and it releases endorphins.
Okay.
Which have mood-boosting effects. And yoga in particular is really beneficial because it combines movement with breath work and mindfulness.
Oh, wow. So it's like a triple threat against anxiety. I love it.
It is.
Okay. But let's say, you're in the middle of an anxiety spiral. What is something you can tell yourself in that moment to kind of help you get back to center?
2 phrases that I find really helpful are, am I safe in this moment? And I am safe. The first one, it helps you ground yourself in the present and really distinguish between, real threats and perceived threats.
Yeah.
And the second one, I am safe, offers reassurance. It helps soothe your nervous system.
Yeah, because anxiety often pulls us out of the present, right?
Oh, it does.
Into those what-if scenarios of the future.
Absolutely. And remember, repetition is key. The more you repeat those phrases, the more you rewire your brain to associate the present moment with safety.
Oh, I love that.
It's like giving our inner child that comfort and reassurance.
And breath work too, right? Like we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Breath work can be so powerful in regulating our nervous system.
It is. One of the most effective techniques is called the physiological sigh. It involves taking 2 quick inhales through your nose, followed by a long hissing exhale through clenched teeth.
Wait, hissing through clenched teeth?
It sounds strange, I know.
Okay.
But it really helps to reduce that carbon dioxide buildup, which often happens when we're anxious.
Okay.
And it signals to the brain that it's time to relax.
I'm definitely going to try that one.
Yeah, it's a good one to have.
This has been so insightful. I already feel more empowered just knowing about these tools.
It is empowering, isn't it? To realize we have this power to heal our anxiety. It starts with understanding how our bodies and minds work together.
Right.
And then responding with that self-compassion and care.
This has been incredibly powerful. So it's not just managing anxiety, it's healing it by connecting with our bodies.
Yes.
And offering ourselves that compassion.
Absolutely. It's recognizing that anxiety isn't the enemy, but it's actually a guide.
Right.
Leading us towards wholeness. We've been exploring how anxiety is really like this bodily response, this alarm system that's rooted in these like early experiences of separation.
Right.
But, this alarm system, it's uncomfortable, for sure.
Yeah.
But it's not like inherently bad,
Oh, yeah.
It's actually trying to protect us.
Right. That's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
We tend to just see it as like the enemy.
Yeah.
But it is, like you said, it's a survival mechanism. It's our body's way of communicating that something feels off.
Exactly. And the more we understand this like alarm system, the better we can respond to it, constructively.
Okay.
Instead of like being trapped in that, fear and avoidance.
Yeah.
We can actually view anxiety as an opportunity, right?
Mm-hmm.
For growth and healing.
So how do we make that shift from fear to growth?
Well, one powerful approach is to start reparenting our inner child.
Okay.
That wounded part of ourselves that's like carrying those early experiences of separation.
I'm intrigued by this idea of reparenting our inner child.
Yeah.
What does that actually look like in practice?
Well, it's less about literally talking to ourselves in like a baby
Right.
voice,
Right.
and more about cultivating self-compassion and understanding.
Huh.
Imagine like, a scared or upset child.
Yeah.
You wouldn't scold them or tell them to like, just get over it.
Right.
You would offer comfort and reassurance and a safe space to express their emotions.
Right. And that's what we need to learn to do for ourselves.
So it's about recognizing that those anxious feelings, they come from a place of hurt.
Yeah.
And responding with love rather than judgment.
Exactly. And, it's a practice. It takes time.
Right.
Especially if we've spent years, criticizing ourselves or suppressing our emotions.
Right. It's a journey, not a destination. We have to be patient with ourselves.
Absolutely. And a crucial part of this journey is like paying attention to our bodies.
Okay.
Noticing those early warning signs of anxiety. The racing heart, the tightness in the chest, the shallow breaths.
Yeah.
And responding with self-care.
So instead of trying to just like push through those feelings, we can use them as like cues to slow down, check in with ourselves.
Yeah.
And use those calming techniques we talked about.
Absolutely. The better we become at listening to our bodies, the better we can manage anxiety, and prevent those spirals.
And this makes me think about all the ways we try to numb ourselves when anxiety hits. Oh, yeah.
Like scrolling through social media, binge watching, overeating, even like overworking.
Those are all such common coping mechanisms, aren't they? And they might provide some temporary relief, but ultimately they're just disconnecting us from our bodies.
Right.
And preventing us from addressing, that root cause of our anxiety.
It's like putting a Band-Aid on a wound that needs stitches.
Exactly. And what's more, these numbing behaviors, they can become addictive.
Oh, yeah.
Which creates this like vicious cycle of anxiety and avoidance.
So how do we break free from this cycle?
Well, it starts with awareness, right?
Okay.
What do you do when you feel anxious? Where does your mind go? What behaviors do you engage in?
Right.
And once you recognize those patterns, you can start to make like more conscious choices about how you respond.
Right. So it's about becoming more mindful.
Yes.
Of our thoughts, our feelings, our behaviors, and choosing responses that support our well-being rather than sabotage it.
Exactly. And that might involve, developing new coping mechanisms.
Okay.
Healthy ways to soothe and regulate your nervous system.
Like what?
Things like, exercise, meditation, spending time in nature, creative expression, connecting with loved ones.
Right. It's about finding what works for you.
Yeah.
Those activities that make you feel grounded and connected and at ease.
Absolutely. There's no like one-size-fits-all approach. It's about experimenting.
Right.
And finding what resonates.
And this kind of connects back to that idea of, finding that safe place in your body.
Yes.
Like creating that inner sanctuary where you can find peace and calm, regardless of what's happening externally.
Exactly. And that safe place is always accessible. It doesn't rely on like external factors or other people.
Right.
It's a resource you can tap into anytime, anywhere.
So even in those moments, those like overwhelming moments of anxiety, we can remember like we have that inner sanctuary.
You do. You have that safe place within you.
And the more you practice accessing it, the easier it becomes to find that calm amidst the storm.
That's it.
I love that. I love that imagery. It's empowering to know that we have this like innate capacity.
I do.
For healing and resilience.
We do. And breath work is such a powerful way to tap into that resilience.
Yeah.
We talked about the physiological side, but there are so many other breathing techniques that can help regulate the nervous system and, soothe anxiety.
You're a proponent of box breathing.
I am.
Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, box breathing, also called square breathing, is so simple, but it's incredibly effective. And it basically involves inhaling for a count of 4, holding for 4, exhaling for 4, holding for 4.
Okay.
So you're creating this like box, this square, and it slows down your breathing, calms the mind, and it creates this sense of rhythm and control.
It's like creating this little pocket of peace within the chaos.
Exactly. And you can do it anytime, anywhere. You don't need any special equipment or even a quiet space.
That's great.
You can do it in like a stressful meeting. Wow. Traffic, or even just lying in bed if your mind won't stop racing.
Oh, yeah. It's like a secret weapon against anxiety we can carry with us everywhere.
It is. And the more you practice these techniques, the more they become embedded in your nervous system, which makes it easier to just access calm and relaxation, like on demand.
But our culture, seems to really value busyness and productivity.
It does.
Often at the expense of like well-being.
Yeah.
We're constantly told to do more, achieve more, strive for more.
Yeah, and that constant pursuit of more, it can be so taxing on our nervous systems.
It is.
And it can lead to, anxiety and burnout.
So it's crucial to create space for stillness, rest, and just being.
Yeah.
Rather than constantly doing.
Absolutely. We need to give ourselves permission to slow down, recharge, and just like reconnect with our bodies and our inner wisdom.
So that might involve setting boundaries, saying no to things that drain our energy.
Yes.
And prioritizing activities that nourish our soul.
Absolutely. It's about creating a life that's aligned with your values and needs rather than, constantly trying to meet these external expectations.
Reclaiming our power.
Yes.
And choosing to live, like, authentically and fulfillingly.
Exactly. And remember, healing, it's not linear.
Right.
There will be ups and downs. There'll be moments of progress and moments that feel like setbacks.
Right. So we need to be kind to ourselves. Embrace the imperfections.
Yes.
Celebrate those small victories.
Exactly. And remember, healing isn't about, like, achieving perfection.
Right.
Or eliminating anxiety altogether. It's about learning to live with it.
Right.
In a way that feels manageable and empowering.
So it's not about becoming fearless, but about cultivating that courage and resilience in the face of fear.
That's it. Anxiety is part of the human experience.
Right.
It doesn't have to control our lives.
That makes me think about the importance of connection.
Yes.
Connection to ourselves, to others, and to something larger than ourselves.
Connection is so essential for healing and well-being.
It is. Because when we feel connected, we feel supported, loved, less alone in our struggles.
Absolutely. So it's about reaching out.
Yeah.
Building meaningful relationships and fostering a sense of belonging.
And it's also about connecting with ourselves.
Yeah.
Through practices like, mindfulness and meditation.
Yeah.
And spending time in nature.
Absolutely. Cultivating that inner peace.
Yeah.
And groundedness.
So we can approach challenges from a place of, like, strength and stability.
Yeah, exactly. And when we feel grounded and connected, we're less likely to be, like, triggered by those old patterns,
Right.
of fear and avoidance.
This is so inspiring. It makes me feel hopeful about the possibility of healing and living a life that's, like, truly aligned with my values.
Good.
With my, like, authentic self.
Remember, you have everything you need within you to heal and thrive.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Before we move to the final part of our deep dive, Dr. Kennedy, who we mentioned earlier, often works with people who've experienced trauma. Even trauma that occurred, before they could even describe it.
Right.
He says these early experiences can create, like, this really deep sense of alarm in the body that can linger for years.
Trauma can have such a profound impact on our nervous systems.
Yeah.
Leaving us feeling hypervigilant, easily startled, and chronically anxious.
So even if we don't consciously remember those early experiences, our bodies might still be holding on to that pain.
Precisely. And this is why it's so crucial to approach healing, like from this body-first perspective, By tuning into those physical sensations, we can begin to kind of unravel those old patterns and cultivate safety and well-being in the present moment.
It's a powerful message of hope.
It is.
Even if we faced, difficult experiences, even if our bodies carry that weight of the past, we have that power to heal and create a brighter future.
Healing is possible. It begins with taking that first step, that first breath, that first moment of self-compassion, that first act of turning towards ourselves with love and understanding. Beautifully said. Let's take a moment to reflect on these insights, and we'll be back soon to wrap up our exploration of anxiety and healing. Welcome back to our deep dive into anxiety and healing. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling a real shift in, like, my understanding of anxiety.
Yeah.
Just from these conversations, like simply acknowledging the role that our bodies play and just learning those techniques for calming the nervous system. It's so empowering.
It is empowering. And, remember, this isn't about reaching some, like, mythical anxiety-free state.
Right.
Life is going to have its challenges, right?
Yeah.
It's about cultivating that resilience, that ability to bounce back from those difficult situations, to navigate those tough emotions without being completely swept away by them.
So it's like we're strengthening those mental and emotional muscles. Yeah. The more we practice these techniques, the stronger we become. Exactly. And just like physical exercise, consistency is key.
Yeah.
It's not about attending one yoga class or trying the physiological sigh once and expecting like a complete transformation. It's about weaving these practices into our daily lives, making them part of our routine.
Creating a lifestyle that supports our well-being.
Yes.
Rather than searching for those quick fixes when anxiety flares up.
Exactly. And that lifestyle could include, things like prioritizing sleep, nourishing yourself with healthy foods, setting boundaries with technology, and making time for activities that bring you joy and connection.
It's about taking that holistic approach to well-being.
Yes.
Recognizing that our physical, emotional, and mental health, they're all intertwined.
They are. And remembering that we're not alone in this, There are so many resources available, therapists, support groups, online communities, even just reaching out to a trusted friend or family member.
It's okay to ask for help.
It is.
Vulnerability is a strength, not a weakness.
Yeah. Absolutely. And healing ourselves is not a selfish act. When we heal, we bring that healing to the world around us,
Yeah.
We show up as more present, compassionate, and resilient human beings.
Like we send those positive ripples outward.
Yes.
We've covered so much ground today. Do you have any final words of wisdom for our listeners who are on this path of healing from anxiety?
Just remember that you are worthy of love, peace, and joy.
Yeah.
You have the power within you to create a life that feels authentic and aligned.
Right.
And even when that anxiety feels overwhelming, remember to just breathe.
Yeah.
Connect with your body and offer yourself compassion. You're not alone. And you are capable of incredible things.
That is beautifully said. I feel like we've been given a roadmap, not just for managing anxiety, but for living a more fulfilling and meaningful life.
That's it,
Yeah.
It's remembering that we have that power to choose how we respond to those challenges, to cultivate resilience, and create a life that reflects our deepest values.
Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and expertise with us today. It's been an incredible journey.
It's been my pleasure.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into anxiety and healing. We hope you found it insightful and empowering. Remember to subscribe for more deep dives that unlock fascinating knowledge and help you navigate the complexities of life. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep believing in your own incredible capacity to heal and thrive.